My ex faked a car accident and rented a hospital room just to make me feel guilty for leaving. She even posted photos pretending to be dying. Until I noticed the reflection in her mirror selfie and called the hospital myself. I never thought I'd be the guy who fell for something like this. You always hear stories about exes who fake emergencies to get attention, and you think, I'd never be that gullible. But the thing is, when you've loved someone, and you feel even a shred of guilt for how things ended, your brain short-circuits. Logic gets replaced by some weird blend of obligation and nostalgia. I broke up with Maya 6 months before this all happened. We'd been together almost 3 years, and by the end, everything felt like walking across a minefield. She'd swing from sobbing hysterically to throwing stuff at the wall to promising she'd change. It was like living in a reality show I hadn't agreed to star in. After I left, I blocked her number, deleted her contact, and told myself I'd finally cut the cord. Except, I didn't unfollow her Instagram. I know that sounds stupid. But after 3 years, you get used to checking in, even if it's just to confirm the other person is alive and not posting a breakup rant with your face tagged in it. So sometimes, late at night, I'd scroll her feed. Mostly selfies, inspirational quotes, a few cryptic captions like, sometimes the people who say they love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. Stuff like that. That's why, when I got the text from Sarah, our mutual friend, I felt like my stomach dropped straight through the floor. Hey. I don't know who else to tell you this, but Maya's in the ICU. She got in a car accident last night. She was asking for you when she came to. I'm really scared, my name. I think you should come. I read that message at least 5 times. Part of me instantly thought, she did something to herself. Another part was just, numb. Like I was waiting for someone to pop out and tell me it was a prank. I texted back, what happened? Is she conscious? Sarah replied almost immediately, yeah, she drifted in and out, but she kept saying your name. They think there's internal bleeding. That was it. The phrase internal bleeding short-circuited any skepticism I had. My ex might have been manipulative, but she wasn't some sociopath who'd fake a medical emergency. At least, that's what I told myself as I threw on clothes and drove across town at 1:30 in the morning. I rehearsed in my head what I'd say if she really was dying. I'm sorry for everything. I did love you. I hope you know that. Over and over. When I got to the hospital, the place was quiet except for the hum of vending machines and the squeak of a janitor's cart. I told the woman at reception I was there for Maya, gave her full name, and braced for the worst. She flipped through some papers, then looked up with a bland expression. Room 312. Down the hall to the left. Just like that. No concerned look, no are you family, nothing. I remember thinking that was weird. I walked into room 312 expecting to see her unconscious. Instead, she was propped up on pillows in a private room, hooked to a monitor with an M4 in her hand. She looked, okay. A little pale, maybe. But she had her phone charging on the table beside her. Her eyes fluttered open when she saw me, and for a second, the familiarity hit me so hard my chest actually ached. She reached out her hand, the 4-tube tugging a little, and whispered, you came. I didn't know what to say. I pulled the chair closer, sat down, and let her hold my hand. She closed her eyes again like the effort had exhausted her. I could see the screen of her phone lighting up every few seconds with notifications. Probably all the mutuals who knew I was here. After a minute, I glanced around. The room was spotless. There were fresh flowers on the counter, a tray with unopened juice cartons, and a thin hospital bill folded on top of her overnight bag. I don't know why I peeked at it. Maybe because something about this whole scene felt too curated. The top line said private suite rental, $420 per night. No mention of ICU. No ER charges. I told myself I was being paranoid. She almost died. Of course she'd be moved to a private room. But when I looked back at her, she was already typing something into her phone with her free hand. Like she was updating someone that I'd arrived. I left an hour later, telling her I'd come back in the morning. As I drove home, every rational part of me tried to piece together what didn't add up. Why a supposedly critical patient was alone, why she had a full face of makeup, why the reception desk acted like I was visiting someone getting their tonsils out. I didn't sleep that night. I kept refreshing her Instagram. Just before dawn, she posted a photo, her hand with the 4 in it, captioned, if this is the end, I'm glad I got to see him one last time. And that, more than anything, made something twist in my gut. Because she'd posted it while I was sitting right there. By the time the sun came up, I'd convinced myself that maybe I was just in shock. Maybe everything was exactly as it looked, a tragic accident, a last-minute reunion, a person clinging to life. I tried to let it go. But the thing about doubt is that once it wedges itself in your brain, it doesn't leave. It just sits there, poking you every time you start to feel sure again. I went back to the hospital that afternoon. I stopped by the reception desk first, thinking maybe I'd get some clarity if I asked the right questions. The same woman from the night before was on duty. "Hi," I said. "Can you tell me what happened with Maya, last name? I'm trying to understand how serious it is. Was she in an accident?" The woman raised her eyebrows, then glanced at her computer screen. "I'm sorry, are you family?" I hesitated. "No, just a close friend." She gave me a bland smile. "I'm afraid I can't disclose any details, but she's under observation. She's in no immediate danger." That phrase, "no immediate danger," sounded pretty far from internal bleeding. I walked to her room, knocked softly, and pushed the door open. She was sitting up in bed with her phone in both hands, tapping furiously. When she saw me, she dropped it so quickly it slipped between the sheets. "Oh, you came back," she said, her voice softer, almost shy. "Yeah," I said, pulling up the chair. "How are you feeling?" She put her hand dramatically over her heart. "A little better now. The pain meds help. I didn't know if I'd wake up this morning." I nodded, though something felt tight behind my ribs. "What did the doctor say?" I asked carefully. Her eyes darted to the door, then back to me. "They're not sure yet. They think my spleen might be ruptured or something. They're running more tests." That's when I remembered the bill again. No mention of tests, no ICU fees, just the suite rental and a line item for observation. I forced myself to smile. "I'm glad you're okay." She looked like she was about to cry. "It means everything that you came." "Really?" A nurse came in to check the monitor, and I instinctively stepped aside. "How is she doing?" I asked, trying to sound casual. The nurse glanced at Maya, then at me. "Vitals are stable. No concerns at this time." Maya shot her a look that was almost irritated. The nurse didn't notice. She adjusted the 4-line, then left. I stayed another 20 minutes. She talked about how scary the night had been, how she'd thought about me the whole time, how she didn't know if she'd make it. Every time she said if I'd died, I felt more like I was being fed lines from a script. When I left, I didn't go home. I sat in my car in the parking garage, scrolling her Instagram. I hadn't noticed before, but she'd posted 3 more photos overnight. One was the same 4-picture I'd seen her take. Another was a mirror selfie in the hospital bathroom. She looked tired but perfectly made up. The last was a close-up of her face with the caption, "You never think it'll be you. Tell the people you love before it's too late." The timestamp on the mirror selfie was 2:13 a.m. I was with her at 2:13 a.m. She hadn't left the bed once. I screenshotted everything. When I got home, I called Sarah. She didn't pick up. I tried again. Voicemail. My phone buzzed with a text from her instead, "I can't talk right now. I'll call you later." Something about that set off alarm bells. Sarah had been the one to text me in the first place. If this was all real, why was she dodging me now? I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I couldn't let it go. Not yet. That night, Maya posted another photo, her hand intertwined with mine on the hospital bed. I hadn't even noticed her take it. The caption said, "He came. He always cared. Even when he said he didn't." And that, more than the tubes, more than the hospital gowns, more than the tears, felt like a punch straight to the gut. Because it was starting to feel like this whole thing was about proving a point. That photo of our hands together haunted me. Not because it was intimate, though it was, but because I couldn't remember her taking it. My brain kept looping back to that moment, her shifting slightly, her free hand moving, my head turned toward the door. I must have been so exhausted I didn't notice her angling her phone. But even then, part of me still wanted to believe she wouldn't do this. That I was being paranoid, that she was genuinely hurt, that maybe she just wanted comfort. I spent the next day glued to my phone. Sarah finally texted again, but she still wouldn't pick up my calls. "She's really fragile right now. Don't upset her." That wording, "don't upset her," echoed something I'd heard 100 times during our relationship. Every time I tried to set a boundary or call her out on a lie, it always turned into an accusation that I was being cruel to someone fragile. I didn't reply. I needed something concrete. Around 5 p.m., I got a notification that Maya had gone live on Instagram. I opened it without thinking. The video was shaky, she was holding her phone under her chin, the 4 clearly visible. She spoke in a small, trembly voice, "Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for all the messages and prayers. I don't know what I'd do without you guys. I'm fighting, but it's really hard. If you love someone, tell them. You never know when it'll be too late." She sniffled, wiping a tear with the back of her perfectly manicured hand. And then, clear as day, I heard the hospital monitor behind her start to beep. Not a panicked alarm, just the same steady beep it had made every time I'd visited. I realized, with a cold sinking feeling, that she'd propped her phone so you could see the machines in the background on purpose. When the live ended, I scrolled back through the comments. Half our mutual friends had written things like, "Stay strong, beautiful," and, "You've always been a fighter." And then I saw Sarah's comment, "He came to see you. He always loved you. He just forgot for a while." That was when I knew this was coordinated. I took a deep breath, then called the hospital's main line. This time, I didn't bother pretending to be a clueless visitor. "Hi," I said carefully. "I need to confirm a patient's admission details. It's important, I think there might be a misunderstanding." I gave them Maya's full name and date of birth. The woman put me on hold for almost 5 minutes. My heart thudded in my chest the whole time. When she came back, her voice was polite but final. "I'm sorry, sir, but there is no record of an emergency admission under that name. We have a patient by that name renting a private observation room, but she was never admitted through the ER. No car accident was reported." My mouth went dry. "Is she sick? Or?" "I'm afraid I can't disclose further medical details." But there was no emergency intake. I thanked her, hung up, and sat on my couch staring at the wall. Everything clicked into place at once, the private suite rental on the bill. The full makeup and perfect hair. The mirror selfie timestamped while I'd been there. The nurse saying she was stable. Sarah refusing to talk on the phone. My ex was staging a crisis to force me back into her life. I felt sick. Violated. Angry. And, stupidly, some small, leftover piece of me felt sorry for her. I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up worrying she'd actually hurt herself. All the times she'd threatened to disappear if I left. This was just another version of that threat. But dressed up in an A4 and a white sheet. I still didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to drive straight to the hospital and call her out. Another part didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing how much it had gotten to me. But I knew I couldn't let it go. I needed proof. I don't know how long I sat there, phone in my hand, the call replaying in my head like a bad recording. I should have been furious, but mostly I felt hollow. Like someone had scooped out everything I still felt for her and replaced it with cold embarrassment. Eventually, I did the only thing that made sense, I started documenting everything. Screenshots of the Instagram posts. Photos of the bill I'd glimpsed in her room. The time-stamped mirror selfie. The hospital's main number, time of call, the date, the name of the rep I'd spoken to. It felt surreal, like I was building a case file against someone I'd once planned to marry. By evening, I still hadn't heard from Sarah. I tried calling one last time. Straight to voicemail. So I texted her. "I need you to be honest with me. Did she really get in an accident, or was this something you helped her set up?" I set the phone face down, because I couldn't stand to see it light up. I remember pacing my apartment, checking the fridge even though I wasn't hungry, replaying every single time Maya had threatened to end it if I walked away. I'd believed her then. I'd believed her when she said she couldn't live without me. And part of me hated how easily that same fear still lived in me, ready to jump whenever she pulled the string. When my phone finally buzzed, my heart jerked in my chest. It was Sarah. "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." Before I could reply, another message came in. She wasn't in an accident. She rented the room. She asked me to call you. She said she just needed you to come so you'd remember how much you cared. I stared at the screen so long my vision blurred. Another message, she said if I didn't help, she'd hurt herself for real. I didn't know what else to do. I felt something unspool in my chest, a mix of relief, disgust, and the old familiar guilt. I almost wanted to comfort Sarah, to tell her I understood, that she'd been manipulated too. But I couldn't bring myself to type anything. I took a screenshot of the texts. Added them to the folder on my phone. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I couldn't stop replaying that first moment I walked into her hospital room. The way she'd looked up at me, so fragile, so relieved, like she'd barely survived. How much of that expression was real? At 2 a.m., I got another Instagram notification. She'd posted a new photo, her in bed again, hand on her chest, eyes closed like she was unconscious. The caption, "Sometimes your body gives up because your heart already did." Hundreds of comments poured in. Stay strong. You're the bravest person I know. He'll come back to you. He has to. I clicked on the list of people who'd liked it. My name wasn't there, but Sarah's was. I don't know why that stung worse than anything. Maybe because it confirmed I was alone in this. That everyone else was still buying it, still feeding her this sick little performance. I lay there until the sky started to lighten. I knew what I had to do. I had to confront her. Face to face. No more texts. No more second-hand excuses. No more giving her the benefit of the doubt she'd never earned. Because if she could fake a near-death experience to drag me back, there was nothing she wouldn't do next. By the time the sun was up, I felt like I hadn't slept in a week. I kept thinking of that first night, me sitting by her bed holding her hand, how real it had all felt. How much she'd relied on my guilt to carry her lie. I showered, got dressed, and sat on the edge of my bed staring at my keys. Part of me was afraid that if I confronted her, she'd escalate, make some bigger, scarier threat. But a bigger part of me was done letting that fear run my life. On the drive over, I tried to rehearse what I'd say. But the closer I got, the more that tight, nauseous feeling came back. My hands were actually shaking when I parked. The hospital lobby was quiet, the same bored receptionist behind the desk. I nodded to her as I walked past, not even pretending to be a concerned boyfriend anymore. Just someone who needed the truth, however ugly it was. Room 312 looked exactly the same, the fresh flowers, the folded blanket, the neat little row of juice cartons. She was propped up again, scrolling on her phone. When she saw me, her face lit up. You came back, she said, her voice all soft relief. I didn't sit. I closed the door behind me and stood there, watching her. Why? I asked quietly. Her brows drew together. What do you mean? Why fake all this? I gestured around the room. The accident. The ICU. The internal bleeding. Why put me through that? Her mouth opened, closed again. For a split second, something like annoyance flickered across her face before she smoothed it over with a trembly, vulnerable expression. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered. Stop, I said. My voice cracked, which only made me angrier. I called the hospital, Maya. They have no record of you ever coming in through the ER. No car accident report. No internal bleeding. Just a private suite you rented yourself. She stared at me. For a long second, she didn't say anything. Then her chin wobbled. I did it because you wouldn't answer me, she said, her voice breaking. You cut me off. You didn't care if I was alive or dead. What was I supposed to do? Just disappear? My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. So you pretended to almost die? Her eyes filled with tears. I just wanted you to remember how much you loved me. I thought if you saw me like this, if you thought I was really hurt, you'd understand how much it destroyed me when you left. That's not love, I said. My voice came out hoarse. That's manipulation. She shook her head. No, you don't get it. You don't know what it's like to be abandoned by the only person who ever cared about you. I do, I said quietly. I know exactly what that feels like. Because you made sure I felt it every single day we were together. For a moment, the tears stopped. Her face went flat, empty. Like she'd run out of lines in the script. I pulled my phone from my pocket. Opened the folder of screenshots. The Instagram posts. The timestamps. The text from Sarah admitting she helped. I held it out to her. I'm not going to play along anymore, I said. This ends here. Her eyes flicked to the screen, then back to me. I don't care, she whispered. I'd do it all again if it meant you'd come back. I don't remember leaving. One minute I was in that stale, too bright room, the next, I was in the parking garage, leaning against my car with my heart hammering so loud it felt like it would crack my ribs. For the first time in months, I felt something close to relief. Because there was nothing left to salvage. No illusion I had to protect. Just the truth, she was never going to stop trying to control me. And I wasn't going to let her. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in my car with the engine off, hands braced on the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing. My brain kept replaying her face when she'd realized I knew, when the tears stopped and the act fell away. It felt like watching someone take off a mask you didn't even know was a mask. I thought I'd feel satisfied, finally exposing everything. But mostly, I just felt empty. Like 3 years of my life had been some elaborate performance she'd written and I'd agreed to star in without reading the script. After a while, I called Sarah. She picked up on the first ring, voice small. Hey. I confronted her, I said. My throat was dry. She admitted it. Sarah let out a shaky breath. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. She was scaring me. She said if I didn't help, she'd hurt herself. I believe you, I said. And I did. I believed she'd been trapped in the same cycle I'd barely crawled out of. There was a long pause. What are you going to do now? She finally asked. I swallowed. I don't know. Block her. Block you, no offense. I can't have any connection left. I need to be done. I understand, Sarah said quietly. For what it's worth, I'm going to cut contact too. I can't keep enabling this. We said goodbye. It was weirdly sad, ending that part of my life, even the friendships that had grown around the relationship. But also necessary. When I finally drove home, I felt lighter. Exhausted, but lighter. That night, I got one last text from Maya. I'm sorry you think I'm a monster. I just needed you. I hope someday you'll understand why I did this. I didn't answer. I blocked her number. Then her Instagram. Then her email. It sounds simple when I write it like that, but it took me 2 hours to do it all. My hands were actually shaking by the time I hit the last block. I know some people reading this will think I'm cruel. That I should have stayed, or at least responded, or offered her help. But you have to understand, this wasn't the first time she'd used desperation to keep me close. It was just the most elaborate. There was the time she threatened to overdose if I ever left. The time she said she'd crash her car. The time she told me she'd kill herself if I didn't answer her calls. Every time, I'd rushed over. Every time, I'd let her reset the narrative so I was the villain who abandoned her. But this? This was the line I couldn't uncross. Because it wasn't just about me anymore. She'd pulled Sarah into it. She'd pulled our friends into it. She'd lied to dozens of people and made them believe she was dying. And she didn't even look ashamed when I called her out. That was when I realized she'd never stop. The only thing left to do was remove myself completely. So I did. It's been almost 6 months since I blocked her for the last time. Sometimes I still think about her, about the version of her I loved. The girl who made me playlists when we first started dating, who stayed up all night talking to me about stupid things, who once told me she felt safer with me than she ever had in her life. But then I remember that hospital room. The way she looked at me when she realized I knew everything. Not scared. Not ashamed. Just calculating. Like she was already trying to figure out her next move. A few weeks after I went no contact, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't pick up. No voicemail. Later, a mutual friend told me she'd been telling people I'd abandoned her in her hour of need. That I was cold. Heartless. Maybe that's how it looks from the outside. If you only saw her Instagram. Her pale face in the hospital bed, her captions about heartbreak and survival, you'd probably think I was the villain. That's the part that still gets under my skin. Because it's easy to forget that the person willing to fake dying is also the person willing to fake being the victim. I used to think love meant never giving up on someone, no matter what. But sometimes, love just means recognizing that you're being destroyed and stepping away before there's nothing left of you to save. I've had people ask me if I regret ever going to the hospital that night. If I could go back, would I ignore Sarah's text and stay home? The answer is complicated. Part of me wishes I'd trusted my gut. But a bigger part knows I needed to see it, needed to have the mask fall away so I could finally stop hoping she'd change. That night in room 312 was the end of something I should have ended a long time before. After I blocked her, I got rid of everything that reminded me of us. Old photos. Gifts. The handwritten notes she used to leave on my windshield when we fought. I thought it would feel like erasing part of my life, but instead, it felt like closing a door I'd been afraid to admit was already locked from the other side. These days, I don't check her social media. I don't ask mutual friends about her. I don't look for updates. If she's still telling the story about her accident, fine. Let her have her audience. I'm not part of it anymore. I wrote this because I know there are other people out there in relationships that feel like this, where you're always the one trying to prove you care enough, where every boundary you set gets twisted into cruelty. If you're reading this and thinking, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm imagining it, I promise you, you're not. If someone has to fake dying to keep you in their life, they don't love you. They love controlling you. I didn't understand that until I stood in that hospital room and realized the person in the bed wasn't the person I fell in love with. I'm still figuring out who I am without all the drama. But for the first time in years, I feel like my life belongs to me again. And that's worth more than any apology I'll never get.